Today is the unboxing of the Johnny Seeds order. So growing up in Maine, this is where the farm that my mom still operates in Maine gets some of their seeds, along with, sharing locally with other growers. But being that I'm here in North Carolina now, there aren't as many people that I have access to good seeds. So to stock up the garden for spring, I did an inventory of what I have. Oh, here's the anticipation right here. This will be the fun stuff. This is the what I have already as I tear down the house. So this is all separated out. These are just bulbs for flowers, because pollinators are your best friend. These are all the categories in separate Ziploc bags and all the seeds that I have within those. I did an inventory of those beforehand, and with my handy dandy map, not that one, but this one, I have planned out each of the sections of the garden with what's going to be in them, and then figured out the square footage and what spacing those plants individually need. So with that, I then figure out what the success rate often is. So for instance, if you have an 80% success rate, you will want to start your germination with about 20% more of whatever selected seed. So if you know you need 80 tomatoes, then you want to try and germinate about 100 tomatoes, being that you're going to lose approximately 20%. That's not an actual number. That's just an example, so you can understand why you would plant more than you need pre-season. Some other helpful tricks and tips that I've learned along the way are use sometimes these clear cups as plant starters. Obviously you have to drill holes in the bottom. These haven't been done yet. These work for a couple of different reasons, not only because you can see the root growth in them, but if you do decide to take a plant that's doing exceptionally well and move it somewhere closer to a window, you can tape the tops on and make its own little humidity chamber for smaller plants that you know will do well if they can get individual sunlight. So I like to do that. That helps a lot. I'll also show you my cold frames that I've just created. So this is flowers, what I already had, and then the Johnny Seeds. Here we go. More paper than seeds, but that's okay. So, and these are all Moscow Organics, so the Maine Organic Farmers Association. And this is going to be all of the tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, and a couple other seeds that I got in here. Some that I wanted to just try their different varieties of seeds that I had already had similar plants of. I just want to see what grows best in my climate here. My best advice to anyone growing a garden is listen to everyone around you who's already grown stuff, but then try and push those boundaries of what you can grow. I had a lot of people tell me that I wouldn't be able to grow certain crops when I moved down here, and I did very successfully so. Pumpkins and squash were two of them that I was told would be very difficult, and I had great success with both of those. So obviously just try and push the boundaries. Try a large variety of seeds. If you know the types of plants you want, then obviously move toward that, but you obviously should be trying diversity, because A, it will keep your pests out as much as possible, because they won't be able to get used to plants. But it will also show you the way that the same plant can grow differently just on different genetics that the plant has. So again, try and get some variety in your garden. It'll help a lot, in my opinion. And I then stick to primary plants, only the plants that I know that I will eat almost 100% or can have the neighbors eat the remaining 100% of, because I don't want to have waste product. I see a lot of people grow stuff in gardens that just is there for ornament, essentially, and that's not the way I like to grow. Next, after you get your seeds, you'll want to get a soil blocker or that little container set that I have back there. These little cups, I was trying a different shape for a block, so I was compressing the soil into these. This cone shape actually holds up a little bit more rigid than these squares, but I also have the tool that makes those, so stuffing these little cups over 100 times would be very laborious and not really worth it. So I tried to make my own version of one. It has a little plunger that allows it to release. It worked a little bit, but again, doing a lot of them would be very laborious this way. I take soil straight from the garden to do these because I do it all outside, so the sun keeps pests a little bit further at bay. I took this 5-gallon bucket here and I drilled a series of holes all through the bottom of it, and this is, I just shake it and it's my sieve to break down the soil into the smaller pieces that I need. I have a lot of soil amenities, or bark, I guess, in my soil that the chunks are larger than I would want inside of a seed starter pellet, which would make it harder for it to grow and it would fall apart easier. Once those little pellets are done, they're going to come out here to the new cold frames. Now this is a pretty easy project and I would recommend it for anyone because it seems to work pretty well thus far. We've had some sub-freezing temperatures overnight and I haven't had any problems yet. I only have one of the tanks currently filled, as those seeds that I just got will be in germination in these tanks very shortly. I'll probably have to warm the soil, as you should with a lot of seed startings if it's cold outside. This one here, I planted in a clear container below it with holes drilled in it, or inside this dome there's a clear container, holes drilled in the bottom so that it can let water come out. I filled it with garden soil and I planted lettuce on Christmas Eve, the 24th of December. And today is the 5th of January, and as you can see, all my little lettuce are coming up and doing fantastic. And this is with no artificial heat. There is no anything going on here other than a $20 Tupperware that I bought at a local Walmart, I think. And yeah, so I would say if you are looking to do a simple cold frame, these seem to work really well for that. Also on 1 Yard Revolution, the channel, he notes that I believe for every layer of insulation in the way of a dome or hood, that it effectively adds a zone positive to the climate. So if I'm in a zone 8 right here and I made this one dome over that container, it would be effectively a zone 9. Now, if I were to take, for instance, and put clear plastic over the top of that Tupperware inside of it, the interior chamber of where the soil hits that plastic on top of it would then be a zone 10. Inside this Tupperware would be the zone 9, and out here in the atmosphere around it would be the zone 8 that it actually is. I'm not sure if that's exact science or if it's just good enough science that it kind of works, and it seems to work fine with just promoting this to zone 9 to let them propagate. I would definitely say just don't let the cold stop you from starting your plants early. You'll get a much larger harvest and much more successful plants, in my opinion, if you start them early and give them longer to grow over the course of the summer. So again, these Tupperwares are pretty cheap. They're about 20 bucks a piece. Just flip them over and make sure they're clear, obviously. Try and get ones that are in the middle of the stack and not at the bottom so that they're not scratched, so you don't lose as much light as it comes in. Make sure that during the daytime these get burped so that air gets in and out, and also that they don't get too hot. If you get a really hot sunny day, the insides of those containers can get extremely hot very fast. So just be mindful of that and you should be good to go. But that's pretty much everything ready to start my spring. I got all my seeds, I got all my soil, and I got all my sun room houses there, solar frames rather. And so now it's just making 1,000,000 blocks of soil, which I'm in the midst of trying to design a better way to make blocks that will hold together. But in the meantime, we'll be using that little guy right there to make a couple of 100 blocks so I can make all those seeds from Johnny's sprout into beautiful little vegetables. And you'll get to see all of that documented as they grow, and I'll label them all and then show you the success rates of each of the plants that I get. These even tell you the germination success rate. So like these Chinese leeks right here, they tell you 78%. So this would be one that the example of 20% greater than you need would be great to grow. Whereas these have a 99%, so you could probably plant just as many as you need, maybe 10% more, and then just pick the best ones out of that. So in short, I would say plant in abundance, plant a lot of selection, make sure you start early, make sure you protect your plants from the cold, and mostly the protection from the cold is actually the roots. The soil itself is what has to stay warm, and the air around it is just kind of not irrelevant, but it's not as important to the plant. But that's it. I hope your gardening goes well this summer. Comment below with what plants you're doing in your garden and what zone you're in, because that makes a big difference. A lot of people will say, hey, I'm growing bananas, where some people can't really grow bananas. So if you know that you've got some really cool crops for your zone, why don't you share below and give a thumbs up and subscribe, and there'll be more videos to come as the success of these Johnny seeds unfolds.